An agenda of this meeting, the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask you all please to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.05, the approval of agenda. We actually realized that there was an oversight, and we need to have a foundation update as item 3.03. So if I could get a motion for that.
I make a motion that we add the foundation update as item number 3.03 on the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to add that agenda item for the foundation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will add that real quickly. All right, so our first other item of business is public participation. I've got 6 cards. We normally have 15 minutes. We'll do 3 apiece. I don't know if y'all have an order you wanted to go in, but I've got them in an order they were handed to me, so I will just call you up one by one unless somebody has a certain plan. Okay. When you come to the podium, like I said, you'll have 3 minutes if you'll state your name and address, and then your time will begin. Our first card is Craig Latuga.
Craig Latuga, 4909 Micheline, Fort Mill, South Carolina. Okay, I'm here today because I'm not vaccinating my kids. Okay? They are 12 and 16. If they have a side effect from this, I will not be able to live with myself. I have a lot of friends who have autistic children. They say it's from the vaccine shot with mercury in it. And no one will back them on that. So they have to spend the rest of their life dealing with an autistic child, and no one has their back. I'm not going to make that decision for my kids, okay? 12 years old, 16, I'm worried about the side effects. As far as the school program, my child was at home for quarantined for 3 weeks this past year in a total. My other child, about 2 to 3 weeks, okay? They need to go to school. I work, my wife works, we are here and live in Fort Mill District for a certain reason, to protect them from other beliefs. Go across the border to North Carolina and see how their school district is. Everybody's coming here in droves. They're knocking trees down because they can't build enough homes. We're already building schools around here like crazy because everybody wants to come to this state. We don't need this contact tracing. This is nonsense. It's a musical chair, game of musical chairs for my kids' education. They're getting shortchanged. None of your educations are getting shortchanged. Everyone had a great education without this problem. Yes, it's a problem that the world has to deal with, but it's enough. Enough's enough. These kids are getting shortchanged. They're missing field trips, good times with their classmates, and that is out the window for them. I had enough of it. I think you should just, if you want the federal check for the contact tracers, take the federal check and tell the contact tracers to do nothing. Sit on their hands. Kids get sick. When I went to school, everyone got sick. You get sick, you stay home. Okay, so that's what I have to say about that. And I hope you change your mind on this test to stay requirement. It just seems like you want to force my kids to get vaccinated, which is nonsense. This is from the federal government probably, and the CDC changes their guidelines weekly. So I just want you guys to understand that we're in this district for a reason, and let's be more free, have our own decisions that we make, not go along with everyone else. I understand that they want the money coming in from the government, but it's not working. We need to be more free over here, and that's why everyone puts their kids in this school district that moved here from other places. the growth says it all. Okay? So thank you for your time.
The next card I have is Amy Youngblood.
Amy Youngblood, 7720 Trail Ridge Drive, TGK. I have 2 students in the district. I have an elementary age child and I have a middle school age child. My elementary age child has not had a normal school year since kindergarten. He is currently in 3rd. Then I have a 7th grader. I am proposing to end all contact tracing. If you will look to your neighbor to the north and look at their new requirements that the state has passed, they have ended contact tracing or recommended it in the state of North Carolina. The reasons for this, per their division of DHEC, are the emergence of variants with shorter incubation periods and more rapid transmission, most contagious periods prior to symptom onset and during the first few days of illness, large number of asymptomatic and less severe cases. Many infections are never identified by public health agencies because persons with asymptomatic or mild cases may not get tested as well as the increasing use of over-the-counter at-home tests and low proportion of all infections being detected or reported to public health during time when people are in their most infectious time period. I think this is absolutely the case in elementary schools. By the time an elementary age child tells their parent that they're sick or they're not feeling well, they've already passed it on. So the horse is out of the barn before you can do anything about it. Right now, per today, y'all's report said there are 65 cases in the Fort Mill School District. We had our infection, we had a huge spike, and it's gone now. I think parents are frustrated because there doesn't seem to be an end date in contact tracing and all COVID measures. Parents need information, and then maybe we wouldn't be up here every other week complaining about the policies and procedures in place. I sincerely want my younger son to have normal school. Sorry. And I feel like our comments, our suggestions, our pleas are falling on deaf ears by the board. So please, please look at our neighbor to the north. Look at their policies that they've come out with. I think these are very sound policies put out by a government agency. The South Carolina guidelines are guidelines. Fort Mill needs to be the leader. Fort Mill needs to be the first school district statewide to say, we're not following the guidelines and we're done with contact tracing. Thank you very much.
Got a card from Matt Westergaard.
Good evening. My name is Matt Westergaard. My wife, Sarah, and I live at 1471 Tompkins Knob Drive in Fort Mill. We have twin daughters, Hannah and Madeline. They are in 4th grade at River Trail Elementary. Dr. Epps, Ms. Spears, and the board, on behalf of my daughters, I ask that you, within the bounds of federal, state, and local law, not guidance, end all COVID-related mandates, restrictions, and rules now. These unnecessary rules, which are created by bureaucrats for bureaucrats, are robbing my children of their livelihood and ability to thrive. Thank you.
Caitlin Boyle.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Boyle, and my address is on the card. I am no lawyer, but I spent all day reading South Carolina law and trying to understand the perspective of who is making these rules, who has to follow them, and the understanding that we're all proceeding with. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and I'm sure as a board, you are also probably confused on what you have the power to do and what other school boards in South Carolina have the power to do. I printed out a Facebook comment, which I will pass copies around to you guys, but I just want to read the very end of it. It was a comment from me on DHEC's page. I went through the test to state protocol and I referred to the page on the school exclusion list that this is on. And I asked them, are these simply recommendations and the school boards can utilize your information as a guideline, or do the school boards legally have to select one of these three options outlined in the school exclusion list for unvaccinated close contacts? Thank you for your clarification. And DHEC wrote me back and said, these are recommendations and guidelines, not mandates. I also want to draw everybody's attention to the COVID-19 guidance for K through 12 schools by DHEC. This was just updated on the 13th. It's a 30-page document which goes through all these crazy rules that we're all trying to implement and follow and our children are having to live through. There's not a single research study cited in this document. There is no data cited in this document. As a layperson reading this document, it seems like they just made up the rules out of thin air. And I think most of us would agree that that's been happening for the last 2 years. Lastly, the one thing I want to add, and I thought maybe if I do this experiment, nobody will participate. So you guys got to participate now, okay? And if you're on the live stream, participate. Raise your hand if you know a vaccinated person who got COVID. Currently, only unvaccinated kids have to test to come back after being a close contact. I think we can all agree, just as regular people living life, that this policy by DHEC makes no sense. So here's what I'm proposing. I know that you guys feel that you cannot change anything about this policy, and maybe that's legally true. But what I would love to see you guys do is lean on the local representatives, lean on Governor McMaster to get DHEC under control. Because the reality is that we have massive government overreach by a single department, which does not have elected officials having any sort of control over them. We need to find a solution to this problem. I hope we can work together to do so. Thank you very much.
It's hard.
That's hard.
I hope I say this correctly. Joanna Gasparovich? Okay. Say it again?
Gasparovich.
Okay.
Yes.
Wrong syllable. Gotcha.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joanna Gasparovich. My address is also on the card. Didn't think I would ever be here. Didn't have a huge desire to speak at a school board meeting. I'm here, like many others, as a terrified parent. I think when it comes down to it, I think everybody has different viewpoints, whatever way, however way they think, whatever the case may be. The factor is our kids. My son is a first grader at Dobie's Bridge, who I absolutely love the school. Both of his teachers in kindergarten and first grade are spectacular. Principal, bottom down, wonderful experience. I've been in that school twice. I've been in the school when I registered him for kindergarten and his orientation this past August. My baby girls are rising kindergartners, and she's the year after. And I'm terrified of when this is over. COVID is serious. It should be taken seriously. These beautiful babies are the catastrophic damage of what's happened. It's 2 years in. If you want to be vaccinated, if you don't want to be vaccinated, that should be everybody's choice. And everybody should be treated the same. Hands down, prove me wrong. And I respect every single person sitting here. I imagine you don't have the easiest jobs. None of us do. These babies are depending on us to be leaders with this, to lead this beautiful, spectacular community of Fort Mill, Rock Hill, York County, that people pay a lot of money to be a part of. And we have to advocate for them. They're babies. And this is not okay. And it's not enough what has been done for these kids. It's not enough. And now's the time we can make a change. We're asking all of you, the reason why all of us are here on a Tuesday night at 6:15 at night, after a long day we've all had, to please advocate for these kids and be leaders in this amazing community that we all call home. Really appreciate your time. Would love to see something come out of this with all these parents that are advocating for these kids. It's the parents' choice, full stop. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And then I have April Coberth.
Hi, good evening. My name is April Coberth. You also have my information there. I've spoken here one other time on behalf of an anonymous letter, but tonight I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and my husband. We do have 2 children in the school district. They're at River Trail Elementary School. I can also vouch for the fact that the teachers and staff there have been amazing. I cannot imagine what it's like to sit in your seat and make decisions for all of the different scenarios that you may come across. But I am hoping that you will take what I have into consideration. First, please stop contact tracing. There is no winner in contact tracing. The test to stay, you make it seem like a win, but it's not a win. It's still a loss. It's still a loss until contact tracing is gone. And I'll give you one very specific reason, and that is my son. My son is 7. He has a hearing loss. He's very bright, fidgety, active little bugger, but very bright. Not unlike most 7-year-olds. However, because he had a hearing loss that went undiagnosed until last year, he's behind in reading. Now, thankfully, he has hearing aids now, and he has phenomenal teachers that he meets with every day in remediation, and he's catching up, and he's doing wonderfully. But he is a kid that cannot miss school. So you would think this test to stay would be a perfect option for a kid like this. But let me tell you what options you're actually giving me and my husband. Option A, I opt into your test to stay, and he can, if he's a close contact, he can stay at school if he's healthy. But what you're now going to do is force him to wear a mask for 10 days. Do you know what a kid does who has hearing aids, who has to wear a mask all day? He takes his hearing aids out. So you're now forcing a 7-year-old to choose between wearing a mask and hearing his friends and his teachers clearly. And that doesn't seem very fair. But yet I have another option. I could keep him home for 10 days. Then he wouldn't have to wear a mask. He's a kid that cannot afford to miss instruction. Yes, he can go home for 10 days and maybe he has a few worksheets or writing activities to do, but he's not learning anything. I mean, I'm not a homeschooler. I don't homeschool him. I work full-time. My husband works full-time. I have to hire a tutor for him. So we live in the most expensive school district for him to go to school, but then I have to hire a tutor or a babysitter or something like that. That doesn't really work for us either. Neither of these options work for us. But these are the options that we have. And the more we contact trace and the more we come up with things like test to stay, we're harming everybody. I'll leave you one last thought. How is it okay for a school district to keep my child out for 10 days, potentially multiple times a year? But if we took that time and we went on vacation and we went to travel and we did this and we did that, or maybe I decided to keep my kid locked in my house and I didn't want them to have an education for 10 days, multiple times. I'd have DSS knocking on my door and threatening to throw me in jail. So how can a school district say that that is okay, but I can't do that? That seems so hypocritical. Until we get rid of contact tracing, there will be no win. We get rid of that, everybody moves on, everybody wins. Thank you for your time.
we're not going to have a conversation about contact tracing and other things because it's not on our agenda. Most of you guys received an email from me earlier today. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your concerns. We share a lot of those concerns. While we do have clarification from DHEC that it is a requirement, it is not a guideline or a recommendation, we are going to continue to work with DHEC and hope to be able to implement some of the things that you ask for soon. So thank you all for your time. We are going to move on the agenda. Our next item is staff report, starting with 3.01, the Program of Studies, Dr. Wakesness.
Good evening. On the table, you have a copy of our newest program of study. This is always an exciting moment for us in the curriculum department because it's a compilation of a lot of work from our teachers, our administrators, our assistant principals, and our students who will be here at the next meeting to be recognized for the great work that they did on the cover design. So we're excited with the new book. And then I always try to think, what's the best way to present this to you guys? Because I know some of you have spent a lot of time in the program of study, and I know some of you may not have as much experience, so I don't want to bore everybody, but I want to kind of give you a few highlights. So that's what I'll do this evening. So as you may know, all rising ninth graders receive a printed copy of the program of study, and then we have the digital versions posted on the school websites, the high school websites, and the district website. And that allows us to update it because from time to time there's changes after the printing. So that's why we have it posted on the website as well. So on this screen here are just a couple screenshots, the table of contents. You can kind of see everything that's within the book. Just all sorts of information from course descriptions to pathways to attendance information, graduation requirements, information about scholarships, state scholarships, GPA charts, just a lot of different information inside the program of study. Something I pulled out because this is, I think, the first full year of the Seals of Distinction. You remember we talked a couple years ago about moving from the district diploma of distinction to the state diploma seals of distinction. So there's a chart in there with the different seals that our students are eligible to earn, statewide recognition, which is great. There's the honors, college and career ready, and then a few specialization ones that they are able to achieve. Something else in there, it talks about our CTE completer requirements. I think we added this maybe 2 years ago to the program of study so students can see exactly which courses they need in order to be considered a completer by the state. And we have in there in parentheses current as of printing because that is totally up to the state and sometimes that changes and gets modified. Typically not this late in the game for next year, but we put that in there for students to be able to easily see what they need to complete to be considered a completer. And then each course has a course description where it gives you about a paragraph or so detailing the course, what's in it, the content. Also, the prerequisites are at the very top so students know what they need to be able, what they need to do to be able to get into those courses. And then there's a pathway for each of our core areas. That's on the right side of the slide on the screen where it shows different paths that students may take based off of their goals. If they're going to a four-year university, if they plan to go right into the workforce, if they want to do the honors pathway, it kind of lays out the typical progression that we have for our students. And it has that for science, it has that for math as well. Any specific questions on the program of study, or is there any more information that you would like? And as I said, the students will and the teacher will be here next meeting, the first meeting of the month, to be recognized.
I think every year we see this, we see different improvements, and it makes it user-friendly to use this and to see it. And I like that it's written, but then you've got visuals to help see that path. Sometimes it's a little bit easier for the students to read it that way too.
Yeah. You know, we've gone back and forth about printing or not printing. Do we save the money? But I think sometimes, at least for the rising ninth graders, it's nice to have a book that you can sit around the kitchen table with your parents or whoever and look at it and go through it. So we've kept printing it, but we have talked about not, but I think we're going to stick with it for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and honestly, that would be my only feedback would be for the rising ninth graders or any incoming students. One, it needs to be printed, but the more that they can, in their pre-IGP meetings, really understand how to go through it. It's overwhelming when you have a student at that stage,
Right.
and a lot of people are going through it right now. As a matter of fact, the current 8th graders, and I'm seeing on social media all the what does this mean and can they do this?
Right.
So the more that the guidance counselors at the middle schools and I think is who takes them through that, or maybe
Yes, typically.
come down, the more beneficial it will be, because that's when it's so critical to get the first round of understanding
Right.
what this book has in it.
Right. Certainly.
You didn't mention it, but one of the things that's also in the back that I remember for a lot of our students, there are different requirements for NCAA athletes.
Yes.
And so making sure that, so that's in there as well, and making sure that they know that, because it matters to some of our students.
Certainly. And it's different by the different divisions in the NCAA, so that information is in there. Anything else?
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
3.02 is enrollment and staff projections. Ms. McGinn.
Well, good evening. I'm going to remove this. Well, every year is an adventure, isn't it? We have some years when we're doing these presentations, we're talking about new schools. Sometimes we're talking about freezes. Sometimes we're talking about COVID and the virtual academy or not the virtual academy. So it has kept the job interesting, I can tell you that. So this year we had some challenges to getting to a number so that Leanne and we can ask you for release of positions so that we can start in the competitive hiring game or I shouldn't say game, but it is a little bit. There's some strategy involved for sure. So the process, we begin with the 90-day enrollment numbers. Dale Holden gets those from Jean McMullen in our data and Power School office, and works with Miriam Melton and Yvonne Rimple in our HR, and they pull that data together, the current teachers that we have, where they are, by what grade levels, and then all the projections for next year. And he has kind of a cohort survival method, and I think it's under patent, so we don't know exactly how he comes up with the projections that he does, but it's a beginning point. And then I meet with each of the principals because they know their schools best, and they bring to the table trends they're seeing and potential needs they have that are maybe a little different than what he's projected. So we kind of discuss those, and then we start looking at how many positions are we going to need in each school by grade level. So that's kind of done. And then this year, we had to take into account, before we came to that number, we had to take into account reintegrating the students from, the teachers, excuse me, and students actually, from the Fort Mill Virtual Academy. So with all that, here's what we found out. And I'm not going to do a detailed data kind of report, but just kind of give you the generals. And if you want more information, we can do a more in-depth dive into it at another time, but just kind of the basics. At the Fort Mill Virtual Academy, we had 27 classroom teachers, kind of core teachers, 3 counselors, 1 Power School clerk, and 12 special ed, EL, and psychologists that work both at the Fort Mill Virtual Academy and had caseloads in the schools. So those teachers are assigned by special ed, EL, and those departments based on where those students are and the needs of those particular students moving forward. So that's kind of an independent process than the general process. So from the needs, we found out that elementary staff, we needed 13. We needed 16 middle, 13 high, and that's before we added the Fort Mill Virtual Academy back. So that was a total of 42 positions. Funny that we have about 43 FMVA total positions, but it doesn't always end up even Steven where everybody goes. So keep in mind 42 potential new positions we would need. But because we have 27 active Fort Mill Virtual Academy teachers to put back into the school, that kind of dropped that number to 27. We placed 8, 12, 7 at each of those levels, so that we ended up the needs were 27. We got it down to 27. And then there were 3 positions that were open from a resignation from the academy, from a resignation or a retirement. So when we take those out and apply those FTEs, we're down to 24 new positions that we need. Then the rest of the FMVA staff that went in to the replacing current staff, we really now are down to about 16 new positions district-wide that we're going to need in the core content areas for elementary, middle, and high. Grade level teachers, middle school core teachers, and high school core and elective teachers. So that's pretty amazing, because I think last year I asked for 40.
I was gonna say, so I want to play back what you just said.
I just said. I really did say it.
Net new in numbers.
Net new in number FTE, not people, is 16 and maybe
Retirements and resignations and so on and so forth, but 16 additional.
FTEs. I would probably say that we might need to check that again with the high school's registration process. Are always, based on specific electives and that kind of thing. So I would predict about 16 to 20 new FTE positions once we place all the Fort Mill Virtual Academy either into a replacement spot or into a new growth position. Well, we need more than that, but those folks are going to help fill those needs, or their FTE will.
Throughout the Fort Mill Virtual Academy, it's a more common number, but you put those back in.
Right.
Right.
CFO's smiling over here. So the math works to our benefit this year.
It does.
The raw numbers would have.
It does, and I think we'll be in pretty good shape, and there are a couple of little nuances that we may have to tweak along the way, but I guess what I'm asking, because we are in this competitive time, what the board might be comfortable with us going ahead of those new, not replacement. We can certainly, we always post as soon as we get an open position, we post it, but I'm sure the schools would love to be able to post those that we are pretty sure we're going to need, and the 16 to 20 is 16 for sure. I can today show that, but a little wiggle room would certainly be nice. So anyway, that's where we are.
We need your permission to go ahead and be able to offer early contracts for 16 minimum up to 20. Is that what you're saying?
And
I'm looking at Leanne.
And given that we will still, all the way through August, have retirements and resignations and other things, then I don't see why it would hurt at all to go ahead and get 20 additional bodies
ready to go
on board.
And in addition to that,
Ready to go.
well, before I should share one more really important thing. Amy's done some work with placing the special ed folks into full-time roles, and we're probably going to need, with the new numbers, and I've talked with Amber Smith, who's over our ESOL population, we're going to need at least 8 new special ed teachers, 1 psychologist, and 1 speech language pathologist, as well as 3, maybe 4 EL teachers, all of which are really difficult to find. And we've had, I think, Amy, 9 resignations?
So you'll be hiring these, whatever it added up to, dozen plus 9 at the end of the day. So again, I don't see any reason not to go start looking for those people yesterday.
It stays.
And we can keep you apprised as the budget numbers come in and where we are with the hiring especially with those positions, because we really need to get a jump on that.
It stays in line with what we've been doing for the last several years to make sure that we are getting the best quality available to fill our vacancies. So I don't know why we wouldn't.
Definitely want to get the best quality.
Yeah.
Question on the 20, so is this 16 to 20 plus 12? I'm trying to follow the numbers.
So the projected needs were 42, and we were able to place Fort Mill Virtual Academy teachers either in one of these growth positions or in a open position. So it looks like we're going to need about 16 teachers,
It's 16
FTEs.
plus what I counted to be 13. 8 special ed, psychologists, speech, and 3 ELs, which is 13, right? 16
So
plus
the net, I guess the net to the budget is about 16. It's more people than that, but it's,
We're asking for 20, and I think that gives curriculum and special services some leeway to start talking about what are the highest priorities past the 16. Because we're also talking about the freed up money in ESSER 3.
Without
that's
virtual.
dedicated to the virtual academy. And we kind of want to look at what the priority needs are when we have our budget meetings with the principals in the next couple of weeks. And then we feel like we'll be a little more knowledgeable about bringing to you kind of what the administrative recommendation is kind of in the priority order.
Well, and, oh, sorry, the 13 that we're talking about in terms of special ed and ESL, that's not necessarily really what I would deem new, as much as it's that we still haven't been able to fill, that we've had slotted for?
New.
This is new still overall, okay.
Vacancies currently for special ed teachers that we've not yet been able to fill, but we did get a good hiring right in the second semester with some new.
Excellent, yay.
And Liza is doing a lot of really proactive recruitment, going to lots of events and reaching out as much as she can.
I'm still not clear on the numbers. So the ask is for
Call
20.
it 33, when it's all said and done,
not what
20.
Well, I don't know that we're quite there on that number. We talked about 20.
And then the 13 that's special ed and,
What happens with the teacher salary schedule?
Right. I mean, as of today, get a jump on 20.
right.
Let's talk about it again 2 weeks from now and see if we need 8 more.
So what we'll do with those 20, I'll have to work with Amy and Leanne and the principals to say, okay, of those 20, usually what I do is I have a list of all the schools and special ed and go, of the 20, if the board says 20, then we'll prioritize who gets to go ahead and start on the different positions. Does that make sense? So that everybody gets a shake at some of the most difficult ones to hire.
We also, I think in prior years, have posted as anticipated openings on some of these critical
Right.
areas to fill, just to get that process going. Liza's done that,
Yeah,
just to kind of get it going, get the applications in, see what the candidate pool looks like.
So you're talking about a 1.7 million additional budget.
Using 20 based on what we budgeted for a teacher on the current scale.
Right,
which
and we don't know.
That we don't know yet.
Napkin math somewhere around 1.7. And what's your comfort level with just the rise in additional revenue? In other words, if you didn't have to count on any additional revenue source, just the traditional growth.
So I'm comfortable with the 20 because remember, 2 meetings ago, I reported to you where we currently stand with EFA revenue based on our growth,
right.
based on the 45-day count. We should bring in about 1.4 million over what we budgeted this year. So in my mind, I'm kind of matching the 1.4 to the 1.6
And you're close enough.
without putting us too
Right.
far out there if
Right.
something strange happened with the state.
Okay. I'm comfortable. Yeah, thank you. I'm comfortable with 20.
Yeah, because we're not at a point yet where we know, and we're not really officially having any budget conversations yet, because we don't know. But we don't want to wait until June when they finalize the budget to begin the hiring
But that-
process.
So that, when you looked at the projections, that's saying I need 40-something new, your top line number. That would maintain the teacher-student ratio minimally. In other words, it's not growing, it's not reducing.
Without special ed, it would be 16 to 20 positions because the Fort Mill Virtual Academy teachers going in to fill some of those 42. The 42 needed was without incorporating the Fort Mill Virtual Academy teachers.
Okay.
So once we incorporate them into the mix of FTEs for either the new positions or replacement to offset the budget needs, then, I mean, because it's like really 2 people for 1 position. One's going out, one's going in, so we still have that FTE to put toward one of these new ones.
But that
So
would
it,
maintain our low student-teacher ratio, assuming a growth
16
pattern.
to 20 regular teachers, and then what Amy is saying is she needs another 8 plus a psychologist, speech language pathologist, and what was the third one?
Is that growth or need-based? So, right, so it could be we have more students. It could be that the students require a greater level of need or care.
It is both.
Yes.
Okay.
Some of our special study classrooms are getting to the point where they will be at max based on state standards. And then there are others where just the needs of the student population require more.
And the same thing with EL. We try to keep a ratio that's within the recommendation of, federal recommendations. And so just looking at our population and how that's grown, we know we're going to need 3 to 4 to even stay where we are because of the growing number of EL students as we grow. That just keeps going up. So anyway, so all that together, the 20 plus the 12, I think I said, that's kind of a number Leanne needs to come up with.
Thank you.
That's the money.
And like I said, and given that we know, we will also have some amount of turnover. Even if we identified 21 people tomorrow, right, we're gonna have some turnover to keep putting
And
people in
we
those
already
spots.
do, because this was before, like the spreadsheet that the shared spreadsheet that we have for people coming and going out, right before I sent the letters to the teachers where they were going. That was one thing I was checking to see how many I could plug into where they really wanted to be first. So I kept checking it, but then after the letters go, I hadn't checked it for a couple of days, and I noticed a lot more positions are open again. So, like you said, we continuing, the hiring will go on from now till August.
Right, and then some.
And beyond.
And I think it's key that we allow them to do that at this time, because we're getting the cream of the crop in terms of teachers, as opposed to those that are graduating in May and don't have a job yet. I think we tend to do better, and the feedback I've received was that we're doing a lot better by hiring, and we've got more selection.
Absolutely.
And so we not only can get a great teacher, but we also get a great fit. The personality matches, the teacher, everything else fits better too.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. You have any other questions?
All right, thank you. Okay, so that's where we added 3.03, foundation update. I almost forgot.
So the vision of the foundation, I'm talking about the Foundation for Fort Mill Schools, their teacher grants has shifted to be more targeted program based on the themes that we've seen teachers apply grants for over the past years, which has mainly been books and technology. So what they've decided to do was to realign their the teacher grants more closely with the district, as well as the goals for our students. So at an elementary level, the foundation is going to start putting money into teacher classroom libraries, as well as technology. And then for the middle school level, it will go into the language, they'll put money into the language arts classroom libraries, as well as technology and internet connectivity for the middle schoolers. And then, of course, on the high school level, they're going to put that money towards the technology and internet connectivity for the underserved. So the teacher grants is going to look very different this year than it had in the past. The second thing is the senior scholarships. So the scholarship deadline for graduating seniors is Tuesday, March 1st. So if you have a senior, there are so many scholarships out there that many of our students qualify for, and make sure that they apply for that as soon as possible. And last, for Classroom Ready, after distributing over 500 backpacks this year, they have been meeting with counselors over 65 times to get more orders sent to the schools. So it's just making everybody aware that even though school started and we provided the backpacks, there's new children coming in, and then sometimes, in the high school level, you have a class that you didn't realize that you had. So we're still helping with that. But if you have an interest in donating, we always accept donations year-round, and at this time would be pencil pouches, pencil boxes, and of course the high-quality full-size backpacks too. They have a Sportings Clay fundraiser event on Thursday, March 28th, and the Tech Dowling golf tournament is Thursday, June 23rd. So those are the 2 dates to mark in your calendar.
questions for Foundation Celia? All right.
Thank you.
4.01, an approval of the band PE credit. Something must have changed.
Actually, nothing has changed, but it's time to reapply for it. So some of you may remember 3 years ago, we were able to put an application into the state for basically a waiver, an innovative course application it's called, but to allow students to get their PE requirements through Marching Band 1. That was new to schools in the state, so we applied for that. We received the approval to do so, and we've been doing that since the 1920 school year. But we do have to reapply every 3 years, so it is time to reapply if we want to be able to continue. But just to give a quick little background, when we started this, we had the band teachers come in, the high school assistant principals of instruction, and I was going to say we, but really the teachers put everything together where they made sure all of the band standards or the band, what they typically taught was being taught, but also integrating the physical education standards. So they're able to meet that requirement. They do not get 2 credits for one class, but they do get their band credit and it meets their PE requirement. So they're not required to take an additional PE course. Of course, if they want to, they can, but they're not required to do so. So we do need to reapply, and it will be good for 3 years when it's approved by the state. So the district administration is asking for approval for us to submit the innovative course application for PE or for Marching Band 1 and physical education. I guess I should have asked if there was questions first. Sorry.
I have a question now, but I'll do it after your motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration to refresh and renew our marching band PE, Marching Band 1 and PE credit with the state.
Second. I thought you were going to continue going.
Oh, I'm kind
We have
of.
a motion and a second to renew our request to allow Marching Band 1 to count for PE. My question, it's not so much a question, but just a clarification. As I recall, there were in 2018, in addition to physical education, there was some health standards as well, and we were satisfying those through High School 101.
Yes, correct.
And I just wanted to make sure that with the things that the state is doing around personal finance and some of those things that might end up having to get incorporated into High School 101, that we're not concerned at all about being able to still keep the necessary health components in there.
Yes, the plan is to continue to offer it through High School 101. Yeah, some districts were not able to do this because of the health component, but since we are teaching that through High School 101, we were able to.
And it's marching band as opposed to any other general band, which I think is the other clarifying point. So,
Yes.
It's pretty physical.
yeah.
Yes.
Has there been any interest from other areas like dance, theater, where they've been interested in a waiver like this?
Dance has tried, but the state won't acknowledge.
Yes, there's groups that would like to do that, but the state has not allowed for that to be an option for those courses. Oh, yes, and ROTC. So they do get their PE requirement met through ROTC.
But so far, that's the only
Correct.
areas or disciplines that the state permits it.
Yes, correct.
We could ask and just have them say no.
We could. I'll be happy to.
Well, I think the more opportunities we can offer for our students to take other classes and other areas of interest would be good. I just didn't know if that request has been made in the past and been turned down, but I guess it has.
Yes.
But it doesn't hurt to keep charging the hill because, you know, and I'm not opposed to PE. I think physical education is very important, but you can get a workout in a lot of different ways.
Very much so.
Yeah, okay. Unless there's further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries and carry with it to our request to broaden their thinking.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a few comments, if
Sure.
you would. All right, I want to expand a little bit on some of the comments that were made earlier, and there does seem to be a fair bit of confusion out there as to what the board cannot do, what's law, what's not law, but, and I agree, it's a little bit confusing, to say the least. But I wanted to say publicly, when the board was elected and come on, we were required to take an oath to follow the laws of the state of South Carolina and the will of the governor. Same for the administration. They have to do the very same thing. All right, so that's what we attempt to do. That is our goal, to follow that. Whether we agree or not is irrelevant, okay? So with that too, let me read another little excerpt. The board is responsible to the community it serves and represents. It is the duty of the board to carry out the will of the community in matters of public education, and this is the part that seems to be forgotten or overlooked a lot, within the boundaries set by the laws and regulations of the state of South Carolina and their county. That's very important. And I just want people to remember that part of it. And one law that we are required to do, we are by law are required to follow DHEC recommendations. So in effect, to me, that makes the recommendation law. And that goes back to what Ms. Spear said earlier.
Yeah, clarify, the school exclusion list is
Exclu-
the part that's
yes,
in law.
I've actually-
There's a lot of recommendations, but the school exclusion list
Yes.
is a requirement. And that's the one that we just don't have any flexibility on. We're taking it as far as they'll allow us.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for pointing that out. I skipped over that in my notes. But anyway, and as far as masking and the differential between vaccinated and unvaccinated, I don't know the rationale for it. I personally don't see solid rationale for it, but that's my personal opinion. And it doesn't matter because at this point, what is stated in the exclusion list is the way it's been applied. So that is the way the district is moving forward at this time. Hopefully that will change in some manner, fashion, form in the near future. And with that, as I say, also personally believe it's time to call to an end the contact tracing. And so I'll say publicly, I'll call on DHEC to do that. What I say matters not to them, I'm sure. But just so you know where I stand from, where I'm coming from, that's what I believe. So with that,
Thank you. I
That's
mean,
all I
again,
had.
we're trying. I know there's a lot of people here that have had a lot of conversations with DHEC over the last week. So I anticipate changes happening, and we will adopt them as soon as we can.
Every other day, right, Gray?
Right, seriously. I would add probably, I guess, just one thing to that. I have heard numerous times over the last 2 years that it appears that we aren't lobbying our elected officials. We're not doing anything to make our voices heard. And I can tell you, especially for me personally, but for this board, that couldn't be further from the truth. We are regularly in constant contact with all of our elected officials within our community and that represent our community at the state level. And we're just one voice of the many. And again, we are required by law to do what is required from the exclusion list. So it's not that we're not wanting to, it's not that we're not doing it. We are doing it. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not happening. But I assure you, we're reaching out to the elected officials that are above us regularly.
I'm going to remain hopeful that things are on the downhill slide and better days ahead.
Yes.
We are in need of an executive session to receive personnel recommendations, discuss legal and contractual issues, and to conclude discussion on superintendent goals, evaluation, and contract amendments. Can I get a motion to move into executive session?
Motion to go into executive session.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We're now in executive session.